Is Xbox finally cooked? What's up, y'all, and welcome to Xbox Ready, my YouTube channel that is all about Xbox. We get on here multiple times a week to talk the latest news, rumors, pretty much anything I want to talk about, as long as it's about Xbox in some way, because hey, it's my channel. And because it's my channel, I get to choose who comes on as a guest and contributes to the content, whether you like it or not. Jimmy Champagne is back, and he is in rare form. He's like reaching his final form because it's getting to that spooky season, getting to closer to October, Halloween.
That's true. I'm wearing a graphic t-shirt. Look, you haven't seen me in one of these in a long time. I busted out all my Halloween shirts.
Yeah, and if you want to check out any Halloween stuff, get yourself in the mood, Jimmy Champagne has a whole channel dedicated to that. So Jim, it's been a while since you've been on. Life has gotten in the way. Things have popped up. I was thinking about you because I saw these comments from someone who's working or knows details about the Elder Scrolls 6, and they came out with a statement being like, oh man, I don't know, it's pretty much gonna be impossible for this game to live up to expectations given all the hype and da-da-da-da-da. And you have come on the channel before and said that Bethesda, at least in the past, used to be one of your favorite studios back in like the early, like the QuakeCon days and like the glory days of Fallout and all that. Is this a red flag for you? It's a red flag for me.
Remember when there's so many times this has come up and my advice is just don't talk a lot of the time. Just don't say anything. Like if you're holding off the game to show it when it's ready, blah, 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 like every freaking publisher does now, why say anything? Because now you're giving us a reason to talk about it in a negative light. I'm sure people will be excited. I feel like it's the opposite scenario, right? Like before this guy said that, people are so excited for the Elder Scrolls 6 that they could show anything. And as long as it's not like procedurally generated like Starfield, I feel like that's the only bar you had to clear. But you just raised the fucking bar by saying that.
Yeah, like, okay, so with Starfield, all of the articles were like, this is the game of generation. This is the game Bethesda always wanted to make. This is the game Todd Howard always wanted to make and craft. It's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime event, hyping it up. And then, you know, it wasn't a bad game when it launched. It's sitting around like 83, 85, which is not a bad game, but it's certainly not like the game of a generation, not even like a 9 out of 10.
My advice applies both ways. If Todd Howard had kept his mouth shut and just released the game, no one would have had these insane expectations. And now if this guy had kept his mouth shut and just worked on the game, we wouldn't even be thinking about this. It's like you don't have to talk all the time, right? Until the game is out and people are talking about it, that's when you might want to say something. But when it's still like 3-4 years out, now every Fallout YouTuber like Mr. Maddie Plays, they're going to remember this, right? They're going to bring it up. It's going to constantly come up. And then if the game is bad, they're going to be like, oh, we saw the signs in 2024 when the creative director, whoever this guy is, said that the expectations might be too high. You know, like you're putting that soundbite out there into the world for Mr. Maddie Plays.
Game development, the length of these development cycles has changed dramatically since they released the last Elder Scrolls. I mean, over a period of 10 years, we got Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim. That was like, you know, compared to now, back to back to back. And at that time, it was like they didn't really need to change all that much, just like kind of improve the graphics, maybe a couple of deeper RPG and skill systems thrown in, some kill cam animations when Skyrim came out, and people, as long as the world was still vast and you could still explore it, they were happy with those changes. Now, with the length of time that it's been with people sitting on Skyrim for whenever Elder Scrolls 6 come out, people are going to expect a massive jump. And this is just not what we were wanting to hear at this point after waiting on it for so long. I still believe that whenever Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, it's going to be a game that people play for years and years and years to come. It's still so far out though, so anything can happen between now and when this game finally releases. And on top of that, we got Avowed on the way to be that kind of placeholder of that fantasy RPG. It's not necessarily a one-to-one, but I think it'll be a worthy placeholder at least until they finally ship Elder Scrolls 6.
Yeah, and then in the meantime, you know, that sword behind you could fall on that creeper and blow up your house. You never know.
You never know. I might just be cooked, bro. The reason why I asked at the top of the video if Xbox was cooked or not revolves mostly around this new video that the Wall Street Journal put out. The title was Xbox Lost to the Console War. pretty standard title that people run with nowadays, but they're continuing to redefine gaming, or they're like revolutionizing gaming. It's a short video. It's like 6-7 minutes long. I kind of talked about it in my last video that I put up, but the crux of the video is like, yeah, Xbox is like expanding away from console and they're pushing PC, they're pushing cloud gaming, but then they take the turn of like, here's why they're doing it. They're being outsold by PlayStation 5 2-1 again. That's something that is not really a surprise. That's something we've been hearing for a while now, especially if you've been keeping up with the channel. But what was surprising to me is that I think last generation, which was the same case, 2-1 PlayStation 4s to Xbox One sales, I think it was like a 48% kind of differential between the two. And this generation, it's like even lower than that. It's like 45%, 3-4% either way. Probably not the end of the world, but I did find it surprising considering all of the questionable moves that Xbox had out the gate with the Xbox One launch. And in my opinion, the Series X and S is fucking awesome. So I was like, surely it would do better than the Xbox One. It has more games. It's a better machine overall. So again, I was a little surprised.
It is surprising, but not really, because they haven't had any games and people are kind of fed up with it. We'll revisit when they have Fable and Gears E-Day out, right? If they're smart and make those exclusive for at least a couple of years, that could change the story. I mean, they might move a lot of Series S's that way. You know, people who are spending taking out a second mortgage to pick up a PS5 Pro, you know?
It's weird because like in 2021, at the end of 2021, it was a great year for first-party Xbox games. Some of them showed up on PlayStation 5 as well, like Psychonauts 2, but like Forza Horizon 5 and Halo Infinite came out relatively soon after each other, and it was awesome. It was also the 20th anniversary of Xbox, and I feel like that's when they were moving a lot of units, and surprisingly, during 2022, not so many games, kind of took a drop. 2023, you had Redfall and Starfield, didn't really move the needle. Starfield, you can argue, yeah, with subs and with Series S sales maybe, but it's interesting because PlayStation 5, they haven't exactly been on a roll with first-party output either. It's been relatively dead. Yeah, they're still continuing to push units, and I wonder, like, what existing goodwill from the last generation carrying it over to the next, or, like, again, a strong start at 2020 with, like, Ghost of Tsushima, Miles Morales, God of War Ragnarok, not too long after that. What do you think the deal is?
I think it really comes down to people. Well, okay, so there's a lot of reasons. First of all, a lot of people who had last gen consoles haven't moved on yet. Like I saw earlier this year, the stats on PS4 players were like half of the people who bought PS4s hadn't upgraded yet to a PS5, you know, which is insane. Because they haven't had any reason to, because big games like Horizon and God of War Ragnarok are coming to PS4. So why? Like even Jedi Survivor, it came out 2 days ago on PS4 and Xbox One. So like if there's no incentive to upgrade, why would you if your console's still working just fine? Also, they spent the whole last generation behind Xbox. You know, they were behind Sony. So they lost a whole generation of people building up digital games. Like last gen, I think it was like 50-50 between disc games and digital games, but this gen it's like 75% digital for certain publishers and it goes all the way up to 90 for others. So when you're building up a bunch of games that you're buying for presumably full price at launch digitally, the idea of buying an Xbox Series X or S, even with Game Pass, like that was a good way to try and subvert this by saying, well, you don't need to rebuild your library because if you subscribe to Game Pass, you have the entire library day one. They never really pushed it that way, but that could have been a good strategy for them. But it's hard to convince people to give up when they bought this many games, right? Like I've been on PC and PS5 for so long because I didn't get a gaming PC until well into the PS4 generation. So, you know, I have a bunch of PlayStation games in my account. I just did a video where I tested the emulation on the PS5 and I owned Killzone Liberation and Resistance Retribution from the PSP days when you could download games, and I'm still able to get those for free. I'm just gonna go with where my library is at, and I feel like most people are doing that. But you know, look at Nintendo, right? They put out games, you know, every 2 to 3 months. They're all first party. They stay $60 for a long time. Quality games speak, and that's why I always say Phil Spencer is wrong when he says quality games don't move units. It's like, how would you know?
You also eerily sound like Phil Spencer because he was also of the the opinion like people aren't going to jump ship and join Xbox because their whole digital library is on PS5. Very interesting. I don't think Xbox is cooked. Maybe in the hardware race, sure, but they're going to be around. It's going to look a lot different. And I already see people in the comments being like, this dude, he's inhaling that copium. This is the biggest cope I've ever seen. But it's true. Xbox is going to be around. I do believe that there's going to be hardware at least through next generation, and they're going to continue working on that PC side of things, growing their presence there. It ain't going to be easy because Steam has a stranglehold on the PC gaming market.
Yeah, that's never changing.
Cloud gaming maybe is the dark horse. I know we have our feelings, we have our opinions about cloud gaming, but if they can nail it there and really kind of improve that experience and make it appealing on a mass level, then that's going to be the thing that carries them through the future.
Yeah, and PC gaming's been on the decline since 2023. Like if you look at, there's a graph that the Wall Street Journal put out where it shows like, you know, the upward trend of console, mobile, and PC. But right around 2023, console gets a sharp uptick and PC gets a sharp downtick. So they're poised. They just need to have a good run of quality games, right? Like Sony's banking on a legacy of the last generation, putting out like insane banger after insane banger with like Spider-Man, Horizon, Days Gone, God of War 2018, Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us Part 2. All of those came out within like a 2 to 3 year period. You know, when you have a run like that, it's going to make people want to buy consoles. So if Xbox can get the same thing going with like Gears E-Day, Fable, Elder Scrolls 6, new Halo. That's 4 great games that if they keep them exclusive would influence someone to buy an Xbox console.
And when you talk about Spider-Man, this kind of relates to what we were talking about earlier. Spider-Man comes out in 2018. Miles Morales a couple years after that. Spider-Man 2 a couple of years after that. Within the span of like 6-7 years, there was 3 Spider-Man games. They weren't radically different from each other. They didn't really change up the formula in any significant way, but they did enough for people to want to buy them and invest in them. And unlike our friends at Bethesda who were like, let's take 1 billion years to make the next Elder Scrolls, it's like, what is the better approach there? They're 2 totally different genres, 2 totally different games, but it does make me think. And speaking of all of these games and upcoming Xbox first party stuff, me and Jim, we were putting in some work on Call of Duty last night. Do you think that Black Ops 6 and the continued kind of Xbox Activision collaboration, well, not collaboration really, because Xbox owns them or Microsoft owns them now, do you think that's going to swing the pendulum in any meaningful way?
Dude, I was surprised with how many people when we were playing last night, like when we looked at our lobby, we were doing the Halloween map and it was like 6v6. I was the only one on PC in our lobby. Everyone else was on Xbox. And then we had our cleaning lady here today. So I was like relegated to my office to play PS5. But yeah, I played some Call of Duty earlier on my PS5 and most of my lobby was on Xbox, which is crazy. I have crossplay on. So, I don't think it's smart to subscribe to Game Pass for just Call of Duty because in 3 months you'll pay for Call of Duty. So if that's the only game you're playing, you should just buy it. But people are clearly either playing it through Game Pass or they're buying it on Xbox. And that's good.
I think it helped historically. Xbox and FPS games, I mean, they went hand in hand, especially back in the glory days. Like the 1-2 punch back in the day was not only Halo 3, but also Modern Warfare.
Right. They got the map packs early by a month.
And so I think it's a good move for Xbox. Maybe they had to spend $69 billion on it and they had to raise the price of Game Pass. But I think tying Call of Duty into Xbox's DNA a little bit more closely could be a good move. A lot of people are very critical of it because they're like, oh, because of the Activision Blizzard acquisition, they have to make up the cash flow and make up all these changes. And Call of Duty is sort of overpowering Xbox. I don't know. It was cool to see, like Jimmy was saying, like all of the people playing on Xbox over PC last night.
Yeah, it was like interesting. I think PlayStation had the marketing through PS4 generation and most of PS5. So clearly it's moving the needle. I mean, we got anecdotal data there. It's like a lot of people or some people come at it from the perspective of like they want Xbox to stick around at any cost. So they'll just like support whatever they do and say like at the very least critically, this is just the way things are going. So the sooner you accept it, the better. Whereas I think the way we look at it is like, if you support the consumer and make them feel good buying your product, you'll build a community around that product, and it will ultimately benefit you in the long run. So like, if they take the time and work on these Call of Duty games and, you know, fix a lot of the problems that Activision had before they were owned by Xbox in terms of like buggy releases, the net code not working right. Like, I will say Modern Warfare 3 has been a really nice experience as someone who bought Black Ops Cold War, who bought Modern Warfare 2 2019. 2019 was good. Black Ops Cold War was decent. And then they started rushing out these games like Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3. Modern Warfare 2 was abysmal at launch, and it was nice to go return to form with Modern Warfare 3 and have it run right and just be a good experience overall. And I got to give them props, man, for the Michael Myers skin. Michael Myers is in like so many video games now, like Dead by Daylight. There's like a mobile game. He's been in Call of Duty in Ghosts, but he used an axe, which was weird. This is the best sculpt I've ever seen of Michael Myers mask translated to a video game. I thought the Fortnite one was pretty good. You know, this one is like, he's ripped right out of the 1978 movie. For nerds of horror, they have both versions of the coveralls. They got the navy blue sort of look and the greenish gray, which they didn't have to do. He has like a butcher knife that's perfect from the movie as his melee weapon. The mask looks great. They're also doing Sam from Trick or Treat, and you get multiple heads. Like, you get him unmasked and masked. He looks great. They've got the masks as another pack, and they got Art the Clown. So, I mean, like, Xbox didn't develop that, obviously, but that's a huge positive upswing for me personally in terms of their horror representation. I mean, we've come a long way from when they took Billy the Puppet from Saw and just put him on an adult man's body, you know? Like,
I think people, you know, they shit on Xbox because they're like, they take over these studios and they make them worse. And so far, with what I'm seeing with, you know, the season 6 of Modern Warfare 3 and from what I was experiencing in the Black Ops 6 beta, I have reason to be optimistic. Maybe like not all rainbows and sunshine, but I am reasonably optimistic, and especially with a bunch of the other first-party games I got to play at Gamescom, you know, I'm liking what I'm seeing from this first-party output. It ain't perfect, but I do think they're making a strong case that they could be a good publisher. They can be someone that oversees these studios and produce quality games and not a bunch of Redfalls.
yeah, meanwhile, we're getting a Horizon Zero Dawn remake 7 years after it came out, and we're getting a Days Gone remaster. So it's not like things are amazing for us either.
Anyways, guys, that's all the Xbox stuff we got to talk about today. Thanks so much for joining us for another edition of Xbox Ready. If you made it this far into the video, consider subscribing. Help me on my journey to 200,000 subs. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
Yeah.